Screenagers, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Canon, your favorite movie podcast, the one and only movie podcast, providing you with a watch list of the most essential movies ever made. We, of course, have another amazing essential movie lined up for you today. Back-to-back weeks that we're doing 2 episodes in the week. So this episode will be your first of this week, and then we're coming back later this week with another episode. But before we get to all that, we got stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking War of the Worlds, one of our most highly anticipated episodes for this season. You probably heard them listing off the episodes that we would be talking about this season in our little intro episode that we did about a month or two ago. Bob, Val, welcome back to the Canon. How are you guys doing?
It's good to be back.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we're getting this dream team back together. Folks couldn't get enough of us the first time around, and they were like, we need Bob and Val on another episode together talking space invasion stuff. So here we are.
It's a scream team, really.
Yeah.
A scream
really.
team.
Sorry.
We are.
Sorry. It's a terrible joke.
No.
I mean I think maybe adding Ramona, but then I was thinking about it, and I feel like everyone at the Wasteland loves, Scream Age Wasteland time. Everyone loves Bob-tober, Val-tober.
It's
Bob-tober.
Bob-tober. I'm not going to go into stolen valor.
It's Halloween is big enough for both Val-tober and Bob-tober, I think. So.
Well, I'm honored.
So we're not quite there yet, but as screenagers and listeners probably know, we like to start celebrating spooky season a little early around here. So instead of fully diving in, this early, but it's already the end of September. So we're pretty much there.
It's practically, it has been spooky season, I think, since about August 16th.
Yeah.
That's about when it starts. One of my good friend's birthday was then, and I texted her and I was like, it started now. She's a big Halloween fan, so she appreciated that.
As soon as you can purchase a PSL at Starbucks or any other coffee shop, it's officially spooky season. So this movie is fun because it is kind of spooky, but also not all the way spooky.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels very fitting for us to do it in late September, early October kind of vibes, where it's we're not cheating because it's not fully a horror flick. It's sort of a spooky adjacent movie, we'll call it.
Yeah.
It's got horrifying things in it, but that's not the point. So
true. I guess there are otherworldly beings, but they're not ghosts and goblins and ghouls and slashers and all that stuff that we're maybe used to. Just Martians.
Sci-fi, thriller, horror adjacent.
Yeah. So we do have a lot to talk about with War of the Worlds, the 1953 version. But before we get into that, and I think we previewed this a little bit in the last episode that the three of us were on together, but there are 2 other versions of this story.
Unfortunately.
There are many other versions of this story that we should talk through before we get to this particular film version of the story. So the 2 versions that we are, of course, talking about are the 2005 Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise version.
Well, no, 2005. Sorry, I forgot what year it is. Continue.
And the 2025 Ice Cube and director whose name I am forgetting and will probably never remember, unfortunately, version, the Jeff Bezos version of War of the Worlds.
The director was Rich Lee. He has never directed a movie before and is known mostly for music videos. As if that was not obvious if you have not seen the movie.
So we know that Val has seen it and wrote what is probably still my favorite editorial on the website this calendar year. So unhinged, so amazing. I really need everyone to read it. Bob, did you ever get around to watching the 2025 Ice Cube version of War of the Worlds?
I have not had room in my life.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not do it. Watch someone else summarize it. It's not I don't think it's even a good time personally. Maybe if I
Oh
watched it
no.
sober, other people have watched it like with a substance that made it more fun. I did not do that. Maybe it would be a lot more fun with friends, but
Yeah.
I didn't have a good
Yeah.
time.
No, you did not. Yeah, I figure if I do end up watching it, it will be with a bunch of like-minded people making fun of it. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it seems like a group watch kind of movie.
So, Raf,
Or
you haven't seen it either?
no, my friends and I were planning on doing like an online group watch, and it, the joke just like never came to fruition. Like we were all like, too busy or whatever, never actually came around to it. There's still time. Maybe, who knows, maybe this will become like a cult classic where they're doing midnight screenings and people are
Oh,
throwing
oh my God.
Amazon Prime drones at the screen or
No.
something.
Oh my god. It's
Oh dear Lord.
Amazon doesn't need any more money, so I hope like people, I don't know, find ways to watch this that are fun and not giving any more money to Jeff Bezos than he already has.
Right.
The funny thing about that, you saying that Amazon doesn't need any more money, is from everything that I've heard, this movie or the 2025 version is just like an hour and a half long advertisement for Amazon,
Correct.
which is weird because like if you're watching this movie because you have Prime, you're already using Amazon's
Yep.
platform. You're
I
already
am a
sucked in.
hypocrite.
But like no one was like going to see this movie in a theater or whatever and thinking to themselves,
Yeah.
"Oh, that was so cool that Ice Cube was able to buy a USB drive on Amazon. I should create an Amazon Prime account." Like the people who are watching the movie already are using the service that you're advertising with the
Yes.
movie.
Yeah, it I don't know. I mean, maybe they were hoping like showing trailers for this movie on like Freevee because you don't need an Amazon Prime account to like watch like Columbo on Freevee. Maybe they
Mm.
thought like, "Oh, people will see this really cool trailer and they'll be like, I should get a Prime account." Probably not, but I mean, maybe that was their thought process.
Yeah.
Specifically targeting folks who use
Wow.
Freevee to watch Columbo. That's the demo that they were like, why
Listen,
do
that's
you?
the only thing I watch on Freevee. I don't know what else is on there.
I
I
thought
think I
Columbo was
watched
on Tubi.
Bosch. That's it.
Yeah.
Is Columbo on Tubi?
It might be on Tubi also. I mean, I know that it's on Freevee for sure,
Yeah.
but it would make sense
Yeah.
for it to be on both.
So okay, I think that's enough chatter
Yeah.
about the Ice Cube version. But we'll
Okay.
maybe come back to it because I'm going to ask a question that will sort of like tie all of these versions of the story together. So then we get to the 2005 Steven Spielberg version, which I assume both of you have seen.
I have not.
Quickly, oh,
Oh
you
wow.
haven't?
I know. I'm the most
Oh,
unprepared for this episode.
oh wow. Okay, I assumed that everyone would have seen it.
No, I think I talked about it a little bit in the first episode in when we did the Joan of Arc episode, but I was
Mhm,
raised in like a weird religious cult kind of setting. So like I didn't see very many movies really until
mhm.
I hit
Right.
like college. So this came out to 2005. I would have been, you know, 12 years old. So no, I
Yeah.
did not see it. And
Yeah.
I've still not
Wow.
seen it. So I'll have to go
Wow.
back and watch it one of these days.
Interesting. Okay, so you'll have to go back and watch it and then compare it to these other two versions that you have seen.
Hmm.
Uh, Bob, am I right to assume that you have seen the Spielberg
Yeah.
version?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. At the time.
What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, it's funny. I think I've only seen it twice, which is kind of weird for me with films that I like. But the first time that I saw it, I really didn't like it because it was very different than the George Powell one that I'd grown up with. But it
Hmm.
also I don't know, was just not like the book either. And then I watched it again, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago. And I was like, what the hell was my problem? This is pretty good. This is very good. It's an excellent disaster horror, and there's moments of absolute horror in that movie when they stop the car so the girl can get out and do her thing, and they're at the
Mm-hmm.
river, and that
Oh yeah.
whole wash of body
Oh
comes down the river.
yeah.
Got chills. Ooh,
Yeah.
even now. Yeah, that's some good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie does have some moments of legit terror.
Yeah.
I was and still am a big Tom Cruise guy. So being like 12 or 13 when that movie came out and being like, oh, it's Tom Cruise in a kind of action adjacent movie, I was like all about it. And then rewatching it now and thinking, you know, growing up like outside of New York and obviously, you know, being sort of affected by 9/11, like everything that happened with that, and then like watching the movie with sort of more mature eyes and everything that the movie is like doing in terms of like being like a post 9/11 anxiety film is like super 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 interesting. Which brings us to the 1953 version, which is very much so about post World War and very much so like getting into the heart of Cold War
Yeah.
anxieties. So we've got 53 dealing with that. We've got '05 dealing with post 9/11 anxieties. And then we have 2025 dealing with not having Amazon Prime anxieties.
I actually think what it was trying to do was dealing with anxieties around like increased surveillance via like
Mm,
internet and like the lack of privacy. I think that is what it was trying to do, but it was trying to do that with all the like grace of like a jackhammer. I mean, it was really, but at the same time, I mean, they were like trying to say, you know, maybe the government shouldn't have all your data, but also here is Ice Cube using a drone to spy on his daughter and reprimand her for buying a muffin instead of something with higher protein. And it's like, okay, so you're saying that the government needs this surveillance, but also they don't. It was messy, but I think that is what they were trying to do. They were trying to highlight the like the post internet surveillance
yeah.
anxieties.
Does he work for the government or does he work for
He
Amazon
works
Prime?
for he works for Homeland Security.
Okay.
So
I was
yeah.
wondering if the thesis was like the government shouldn't have all of your data, but private companies certainly should.
I don't think that wasn't their thesis. So I don't know.
Oh boy.
It's a
Yeah.
weird movie.
Don't give your info to Big Brother. Just give it to Jeff Bezos, and he will solve all of our problems, including invasions from Martians. So, circling back to 53, we've got post internet surveillance anxiety, we've got post 9/11 anxiety, and we've got Cold War anxiety. I'm gonna come back to 53, but then I want to go to the original book version, which Val, have you read?
I have not read the book. I'm familiar with the book and the radio play just through kind of pop
Right.
culture
Mm-hmm.
references, but I haven't like sat down and read it cover to cover.
Okay, we should probably talk about the radio version too. Wow, there's so many
Yeah.
versions of the
Right.
story.
Uh,
Yeah.
Bob, have you read the book?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I have like an annotated copy downstairs. So
Do you recall what anxieties are maybe being addressed in that version of the story, in the original
yeah,
H.G. Wells version?
yeah, absolutely. It's about the end of the British Empire, really,
Mm,
and trying to figure out where they fit into a world that they've kind of dominated. And H.G. Wells, of course, was very much like being an empire sucked for the rest of the world. So what I'm going to do is have it happen to us.
yeah,
So yeah, so it was basically like looking down the barrel of a changing world, and also saying, so what if something else had the power to do to us what we've done to the rest of the world?
hmm,
So yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
And it's really interesting how the story has been, like the bones of the story have been used time and time again to explore
yeah,
all of these different kinds of anxieties that we have around whatever it is, like our place in the world and all of that stuff, going from the British Empire. And then in this version, it gets translated to a small town in California.
Yeah.
But it totally works. Like, it works for this story to come out in 53 and be about America trying to like understand its place in this changing world, coming out of World War II and everything that happened there, with like it even, I mean, the movie opens right with like the context of both world wars, and then it's like, and now we're
Yeah.
going to a war not just within our entire world but another world. Like, I thought that was a pretty cool like framing for the movie. Bob, what did you think in terms of like that being sort of the setup that we're going into this particular version um, of the story with?
Well, it was interesting to me looking at it this time around because it is very much, it only happens because of the 1938 broadcast by
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm blanking on one of the
That
most amazing
it's the
directors of our time.
other Wells,
The other
isn't it?
Wells,
Yeah.
yes, yep, absolutely. But they both take place in small towns. One in New Jersey, this one in California. This one, the 1953 version, is a post-war
Mm-hmm.
concern, and the 1938 version is a pre-war fear.
Mm-hmm.
Basically a lot of fears about German infiltrators and being attacked and that sort of thing. So it was kind of like an interesting nod. We're going to start in small town America, just like the radio
Yeah.
show, but then we're going to beat the crap out of San Francisco. So
Yeah.
we're
But
going to elevate this a little.
even though it starts in the small town, though, it does kind of expand to the point where you do feel like you're getting a sense of the chaos on the ground of what that looks like without it feeling so broad that you're disconnected from it, that you feel the anxiety of these people, and when they're looting and trying to drive out of town and jumping on each other's cars. I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead in the movie, but it never zooms out too far, I think, from that small town feeling. Even though we're zooming out to San Francisco, it never feels that big in terms of what we're seeing and people's reactions and responses to the Martian invasion.
Yeah, that's such a good call. It even zooms out, doesn't it zoom out globally,
It
where they're
does.
talking about
Yeah.
like Turks and Bolivians fighting against?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it zooms out to this government building at one point in DC and them talking to other countries' militaries and things like that. But even then, we're still seeing the people on the ground and how they're responding to it, like groups of like two or three people, and it never
Yeah.
feels impersonal in that way.
Yeah. Val, do you have anything else on how the sort of like main characters of the story keep everything grounded, even though this is as global of a story as something can be?
Yeah, I mean, even just the two main characters when they're followed and they're just like in the farmhouse, like having a discussion of
Oh
like,
man.
oh yeah, this is where I'm from and this is how many siblings I have. It kind of, at first I was watching it being like, why are they talking about this in the middle of a disaster? But what it does narratively is sort of roots you in their world of like, oh yeah, these are just like people and they're just like trying to function in an unprecedented situation to the best of their ability. And I think like that's sort of the point of like forcing you to get to know these people so you can't feel callous towards the violence.
Yeah. Bob, what do you think about us having those two main characters whose names I'm forgetting as sort of like our anchors to keep everything grounded, as opposed to maybe telling this through the eyes of like military officials in DC who are dealing with the attack on a more macro level?
Right. Right. And I think that's Pal and the director always escapes me because Byron Haskin. They definitely focused on everyday people because those were the people that were going to come to see the movie.
Hmm.
really. And it was also a way of making the effects, like that scene in the farmhouse is a they're playing house. There it's a scene of perfect domesticity. And everybody that went to see that in a theater probably could imagine themselves in that same situation. And then it gets invaded by these creatures from beyond. And so it was like this creature coming into your kitchen, into your house.
Yeah.
So it was a canny way of making sure that you never lost sight of how personal all of this felt to the individual. And it was that's a fantastic moment too.
Mhm.
That's such a
My
good.
cat is killing me here. Sorry.
All good. Yeah, I love the idea of it giving audience members like a point of entry, especially with that whole idea of like playing house, and she's like talking about all of her siblings, and she's from like Minnesota. I forgot where he's from, um, but somewhere that's also, just very Americana. It is. We end up getting this like super super Americana like version of characters and setting, which I do think makes all of the spectacular horror like that much more terrifying. And then Bob, what you were saying about the effects, do you think also like grounding it on a smaller level? Obviously, there's big spectacle in this movie, but do you think that like just makes it easier to show Martians on screen if you're doing it on a smaller scale, as opposed to only focusing on the like biggest version of the war, so to speak?
That's a good question, because of course they end up making it the actual special effects of the creatures and the war machines themselves are so huge, and the scale of it is kind of impossible to even comprehend from that point of view. I mean, they throw an atomic bomb at this thing, and nothing happens. It's almost impossible to wrap your mind around.
Hmm.
So I don't think that it was necessarily something that they specifically said we
Hmm.
need to ground these special effects in a real world.
Yeah.
But I mean, certainly that's the way it starts. But then after a certain point, they're like, I want to blow stuff up. I
Yeah.
want to blow it up good. So
Blow it up real good. That's the American way, truly
right,
and honestly.
Yep.
that's true.
Oh, we'll circle back to the special effects because I feel like that is a big thing here. But going back to the like small to big of the story, um Val, you like had originally brought up this point. What did you think that the movie, or how did you feel that it was like accomplishing sort of the big, once we got to San Francisco and it's more of a like global threat as opposed to what it was when it was just the small town and like the people within it? Do you feel like we like the movie is like was effective in giving us that first portion, so then the second portion like made sense? Like what did you think of all that?
Yeah, I think it really made sense. I think it's almost in some ways kind of like a time capsule historically that they're gathering in the church, because it's not like really a religious reason that they're gathering in the church. It's more like these were community third spaces, kind of where people would gather in times of disaster, like they would in maybe a community center or something similar today. And I think having it kind of end in the church, and they are singing in the background, very it's kind of a devastating scene, honestly. I think the song they're singing is like something like Whatever God Wills, which is really dark. Like honestly, if
Wow.
I didn't know how this movie ended, which I mean I do because I've existed in the world and on the internet, but I mean, it I would have been like, wow, where do we go from here? Like, it really does feel like completely hopeless. And even though
Yeah.
we only really know the central characters in the room, we kind of feel the pain of this entire community. And I guess that's what I mean by the movie never zooms too far out. It never just feels like, oh, here's a mass of innocent people. Like, it feels very intimate and
Yeah.
painful still to watch this community grapple with the end of the world.
The time capsule thing is super interesting, especially as it relates to them sort of like finding refuge at the end in the church.
Hmm.
I was thinking not just like specifically the religion, but what did you guys think of how religion, science, military, and like everyday people are all sort of converging as like the central figures or like different aspects and ways that we're sort of like attacking this invasion. Like it felt very, again, 1950s Americana in a way that like having all of those things exist in the same space in a 2025 version wouldn't feel
Hmm.
totally right.
Yeah. It's interesting because military is essential and central to the story, but that was true of America at the time. We were out of World War II not more than 8 years at the time, and everybody had either fought in the war, knew somebody who fought in the war, or had to do stuff because of the war. So you can't do it without that. Everybody's trying to get back to normal from that. So that's where you get square dances
Yeah.
and going to church and that sort of thing. But you've also got this feeling like now we're part of a larger world too. There's a whole geopolitical reality that came about after World War II that we're sitting in. I think like Stalin died somewhere during the making of this movie. So that was a whole shift in the world as well. Eisenhower became president. Uh, those sorts of things were always on people's minds, but it was this. We knew we were in a bigger world, but we were trying to cling to our traditions and values.
Yeah.
It's weird to me just because this does lean a little bit into being a religious sort of thing. Everybody's praying for God to intervene, and he kind of does.
Hmm.
As far as the way things but you also have like the minister goes out to try and basically talk to them, and that
Yeah.
doesn't go well for him. And H.G. Wells was famously not religious. In the book, actually, the only religious character is a character of derision and disdain in it. So he probably would have been unhappy with that. But that's an essential part of the American character, and especially at that time. So
Yeah. It's such an interesting movie about that tells us so much about like what America was understanding about itself in that very particular moment in time. And we're talking about how the Cold War like is informing a lot of this. But do you guys think that the Martians were stand-ins for the Russians, or was it more so about this thing that Bob you're getting at about just like there's this new world order, there's this new geopolitical climate that we're in where like the world feels so much smaller. Like Americans are now aware of what the Bolivian army is doing in ways that American people weren't, 10 to 15
right.
years before that. So do you guys think that there is any sort of like anything to like a Russian threat in this movie or a Soviet threat, or is it more so just like understanding what it means to come out of the Second World War and like America's place within that?
That's my thing is at the beginning, the very opening of the movie, with a narration by the great Paul Frees, is talking about we just came through this war where we used all this technology, and now there's this huge threat of the weapons of super science, I think is
Hmm.
the phrase that he says. And so it's less, I think, specifically about the Soviets and more about we just opened the door onto the ultimate destruction of the world, possibly with science that we've figured out. what else is going to come. It's more a fear of the future and what the future means for us and our way of life than it is about a specific threat, I think.
Yeah. Based on that, Bob, do you think that like this movie has a kind of subtle anti-nuclear message?
Yeah, I mean, especially at the time, that was still a time when everybody was like, nuclear power will solve all of our problems. Nuclear this, nuclear that. We can do all. They were talking about doing nuclear ovens and stuff at this time of the
That
in
sounds kind of
in our
fun.
history. Yeah, we got microwaves eventually. I mean, but they make a specific point of this is something whose science we cannot understand, and our greatest invention, the nuclear bomb, means nothing to them. So I think there is a message of whatever we think we have accomplished, the future is going to make it worth nothing
Mm,
eventually. So you don't put too much faith in this because there's
Yeah,
always going to be something else.
mhm.
So yeah,
that word
good point.
faith. Don't put too much faith in the technology that we have now opened the doors to. But like both of you guys are saying, this movie is ultimately something where faith like kind of prevails and is the reason that humanity is able to get through this, which is, I don't know. I mean, like, I think it really works in this movie. I think it's like a really, really cool way for this particular story to play out. And I mean, Val, I know that in the times that you've been on the show have talked about sort of like your past and sort of like maybe not being part of that as much anymore. So like, is there a particular kind of like reading or different kind of perspective that you might have when watching something like this? Like, do you still appreciate that the movie at the end of the day is sort of like God will guide us through like whatever craziness the future may hold?
Yeah, I think narratively it does really work. I also think though that this is a movie that wouldn't be made like this today. I think that just the ideas about like Christianity and where it sits in American culture is so different today. And I was even talking about it with my partner of like, what's the last movie you saw with a church in it and how was the church used? And one of the thoughts that came to my mind was watching 28 Years Later and the priest figure at the beginning of that film. And I was like, I think so often today in like the 2020s, church is often a place of like fear and suspicion and sometimes danger. So in many ways, this is kind of a time capsule because churches were viewed by just a predominantly Christian population as a source of peace in moments of conflict. Of course, that was just kind of the prevailing voice. There were still people who were non religious who were not being represented in their viewpoints in projects like this. But I think as just a narrative piece, it's great. I mean, I don't think you have
Yeah.
to be like Christian to necessarily enjoy it, or find it just to be like a hopeful, uplifting message.
Yeah. But I don't know, Bob, do you have thoughts on that? On how like the push and pull or the tug of war that is going on between science and religion, where
Right.
this is one of the not few movies, but like this is an instance where the like religion is it does prevail
Right.
at the end of the
Right.
story.
Science doesn't have any answers.
Yeah.
And so in the end, yeah, it's interesting because I grew up, my father was Baptist, my mother was Catholic. And so it was this
Mm,
all the time growing up. And I started going to school to be a genetic engineer. And I tried to get away from that as much as I possibly could. And I remember movies like The Exorcist bugged me because it's a movie that specifically says science has no answers. Only faith has answers. And I remember taking it personally when I was younger. And when I was older, I it's like it's not personal. This is about a story and whether it works within the narrative. And absolutely, it does. And there's a part of me that's like, well, I think it's just coincidence. They're talking about God, but it's really science and the fact that Martians can build spaceships and warships but can't manage basic hygiene is what causes causes So there's part of me that's like that, but for the story, yeah, it works perfectly. So.
Yeah, it's so great how it works in the story. It really is spectacular. And again, talking about how it's a um really just like a time capsule of where we were in this particular point in time as a nation, and like the stories that we needed to tell ourselves.
Mm.
Like this is very much so something that this is the version of this movie that needed to be made in 1953, in the same way a movie about a shitty dad post 9/11
Mm.
needed to be the version of the story that we got in 2005. And in the same
Yeah.
way that in 2025 we needed Ice Cube's laptop camera to do a dolly zoom. Like it all
That's right.
it
Oh
all
my
makes sense
God.
for the time the time
Wow.
that it came out.
Wow.
So one of the things that we did talk about a little bit that I want to go back to is um, the use of special effects in this movie, because it is fairly spectacular. And I think another sort of like bit of that time capsule is understanding like what it was that Hollywood was doing with special effects, especially around this time, to sort of expand the kind of stories that we were able to tell. Because again, we were living in this like post atomic bomb world where a lot of the stories kind of like needed these bigger scale things in order to address the anxieties that were existing within our American society at the time. So this is a long-winded way of asking you guys, what did you think of the special effects in this movie?
Well, I mean, you can't talk about the special effects without talking about the producer, George Powell, because the reason that it's this blockbuster, spectacular film is because of him and his past as a animator. Because he started out in Europe as an animator. He came here when the Nazis started taking over in Europe and developed something called Puppetoons,
Mm-hmm.
which was animated puppets. Straightforward. Anyway, and he moved into doing special effects for movies and producing bigger and bigger ideas. So this is one of the first, special effects driven blockbusters,
Mm.
as far as the reason for the film to exist is for him to try and get some of these cool ideas and images that he had in his head onto the screen. And he got a bunch of people to come and help him and do all kinds of stuff. They tried to do try the tripods. They started out wanting to do stop motion animation for the tripods,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't work. So they had to come up with something fairly quickly, and that is why we got that sort of manta ray with a cobra hood um, thing. And now those things were terrifying when I was a kid. They just look menacing,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was probably one of the biggest spectacle things that people had ever seen at that point, and in Technicolor too. I mean, they start with black and white war footage, and then bam, Technicolor. So
The use
yeah,
of
and it's
color in this
just
movie
fantastic.
kind of underrated, or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
not fully appreciated the way that because the special effects kind of front and center. um yeah, Val, what did you think of the special effects in this movie?
Yeah, I think the fact that the aliens are these physical things that they have made with practical effects just make them hold up so well. Like even when you see not just the little like manta ray floating, which are scary, that combined with the sound effect, I was sort of surprised just how much dread and tension they build with those guys. But even when you see the aliens, they look pretty good, like even by today's standards. And it's
Yeah.
sort of shows the staying power of using practical effects in your movie to be like, this looks like an alien. It doesn't look like a cheap computer, whatever. And even seeing the hand up close at the end, I was like,
Oh
this
yeah.
looks so good. Like
Yeah.
it's just it looks good by today's standards, and that's a testament to just how much creativity um, was put into this movie with the special effects.
In many
Yeah, and I love
ways,
this. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in many ways, it looks better than today's standards.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even comparing it to the 2025, I talk about this in my review, if you can call it that, they just kind of look like the droidicas from episode 1, and they stretch their legs way out. And they're just kind of bad looking. They look like, you know,
Oh
like
no.
PS3 Halo
Wow.
kind of looking guys. And you just, as long as the camera's not on them too long, you don't really notice. But like when it is, you're like, oh. um, but
Oh
yeah,
no.
even if you just compare those movies, which are 70 years apart, the aliens in the 53 version are just better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that the alien that you do get to see in the farmhouse, the guy who was in charge of that special effect had got the assignment like really late and had to literally do it at the last minute, to the point where it was wet when they started shooting because of from
Okay,
paint, because his teenage daughter helped him finish it that night,
really.
and then he's inside of it trying to move, get all the veins to move and all that stuff, and it shouldn't work at all, and it's creepy as hell. And I still don't know why the alien puts a hand on Anne's shoulder.
Hmm.
It's almost like a, oh, excuse me, sort of thing. But it was terrifying when I was like 12. I was watching this at my grandmother's house on cable, whatever. It's like going,
Well, the
yeah,
scene when it runs by, it sort of reminded me a little bit of the scene in Science where the alien runs out and everyone
yeah,
hates that scene. It kind of reminded me of that. I was like, oh my God. Like, I was not
Yeah.
expecting it to
yeah,
look, I guess, like, I sort of expected, like a guy wrapped in tinfoil to run out. So, like, when I saw the alien, I was like, whoa, okay. Like, I didn't
yeah,
expect it to be so convincing.
The
yeah.
the science comparison is great, and we'll circle back to that in a hot second. But the yeah, I guess like Bob, do you have like a little bit more context? I know you're sort of our like go-to historian on these like
Oh no.
50s like sci-fi era
Oh
flicks.
God.
I feel like you always talk about like watching them on cable at your
Yeah.
uncle's house or your grandma's house or whatever. Some relative what
From your grandmother. Yeah.
had you watching all of these flicks. Was this like one of the first of these movies to come out? Like, do you know sort of like, was the boom because of the special effects? Was the boom sort of like this like nice marriage between the special effects and again like the anxieties of the world around us, and like those were the kinds of stories
Right.
we were looking to tell? Like,
I
what
think I
was it
think
with the
part of it
boom?
was uh, science fiction had become extremely popular. It had started way before that. You can go right back to Frankenstein
Mm.
for the
Hmm.
start of science fiction. But it became hugely popular in the pulp magazines in the 1930s and 40s. And by the time the 50s rolled around, we were talking about going into space. I think 52 is when Sputnik was launched, right? So,
Oh well, no, not a
uh,
fist for Sputnik. That's the Soviet. Sorry.
yeah, it's for mankind in general. Uh, but I think people were already starting to look at the stars, and we were starting to get bigger budget special effects movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still. But if you look at, I mean, that's a wonderful movie, and an incredible piece of science fiction. But the
Maybe in the canon.
robot, I don't know. It should be if
It
it's
should be.
not, but
Yeah.
but like Gort, the giant robot in that, compared to the machinery of the alien, the Martians in this movie, that leap forward in special effects, I think was at least partially due to just being able to focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, people are going to see these movies. Let's actually spend some money on them. And hilariously, the rest of the 1950s was let's do giant bug monsters because that's cheap, So
Yeah. It's so funny thinking about like 1950s cinema globally and what like different parts of the world were thinking about as it sort
Mhm.
of related to like coming out of the war. Like
yeah,
Eastern Europeans had no time for giant bug monsters or space invasions. And
no,
meanwhile, here we were like, holy shit, we dropped 2 nuclear bombs on people. That's crazy. Like, what does the fallout of that mean? Also, now we are like, we're the big dogs on campus. We are the ones
right.
who everyone else is looking to. How do we reconcile that? And then like over in Japan, you got other like it just it's interest. It's an interesting
Japan's like, hold my beer.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
It's an interesting time to sort of like look at global cinema and what everyone was thinking about. And like there were a ton of other things going on in the States, but this like sci-fi boom was, I think, a pretty interesting thing that was going on. And I'm going to say it again. We'll circle back to this in a hot second, but because this movie, it like we said on the front end, is kind of spooky. There are terrifying elements of it, and we are coming up on Bobtober. How do you
Valtober.
guys, Valtober? What do you guys think of this as something that is a movie that ignites fear?
Well, I mean, for a kid who hadn't had an experience of a lot of like I've seen a lot of special effects and makeup effects and graphic violence and all kinds of stuff since. So I can't imagine what like my Gen Z niece would make of this. But when I was a kid, right from the very first time that you see the cobra headed death ray come out and blast those poor 3 guys, I was like, oh crap, this movie is scary. These aliens are bad. I'd seen ET at that point. I thought aliens were good guys. So this was probably my first experience of the aliens as being a bad invading force. And from there, it kept getting worse because I was already like, I want to be a scientist when I was a kid. And everything that the military and the scientists come up with is absolutely useless. So even just when the bomb clears and you can just see the lights of the war machines through the smoke, that terrified me. I'm like, well, what the hell is the point of us having all of these stupid bombs? They're not even going to do anything. So, sorry, having flashbacks to the 1980s.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I was a very scared kid. It did not take much to scare me. And I feel like if I had seen this as a kid, it would have freaked me out. So it's probably good that I didn't. But I mean, I was just surprised even as an adult watching this movie because I kind of went in being like, this isn't going to be scary at all. And there were moments yeah, that first kill, I'm like, oh my God, like this is kind of like a scary movie. And I think it just does a really good job at kind of building up that sense of dread of and to the sense of just like futility of like that we're chucking everything we have at these guys and it's making no dent. And I think that is a very scary prospect.
And I love those 3 guys, right? They're like a
Yeah.
representative of just kind of a broad spectrum of humanity, for the 1950s in film. That the fact that one of them is Hispanic is probably like the most inclusive that the movie gets.
Mhm.
But like one of them actually says something like, everything that's human doesn't have to look like you and me. You
Mm.
know, it's like a really very kind of open and progressive thought to have. And then the aliens are like, we do not care what your intentions are or anything. We're just going to murder everything. At least they're not eating people like in the book, but they're still like, we just need to scrub this planet clean of all you guys so we can take over. And that's absolutely terrifying. And they're just blowing stuff up right and left.
Yeah.
So yeah. And like you said, at the end of the movie, it feels completely hopeless. That scene in the church is yeah, it's almost nihilistic. You're like, everybody's gathering in a place of hope, but there's no hope in that room.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even like I was thinking about the ending of Midnight Mass. I guess sorry to spoil that show for anybody who still wants to watch it. But it is a very similar scene, except it's much more hopeful in that. This is kind of very hopeless. This is like, nope, everyone is gonna die and there's nothing they can do.
Okay, I'm back. We had some technical difficulties, but I think we're fixed now. The Martians got to us. They cut out all of my electricity and my phone, which is weird because the
You
phone
should
lines.
order a new phone from Amazon.
Now all your watches are magnetic too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there ever a moment in? Well, no, there can't be because the entire Ice Cube version takes place on his computer. So
Hmm.
there's never a moment where the aliens interfere with the electricity or anything like that, right?
So there is
Oh, no.
at the end. See, I didn't include every single moment in my review because I was so tired. I had a migraine by the time I finished this movie. It is just an assault on the human body.
Oh, that's no good.
But he does like leave his desk at one point. So then you're seeing his point of view from like security cameras that his kids are showing on the screen, and it's it's yeah, they do mess with the power, and he's trying to like, hook into the server room directly. And it's a scene. It's not a very good scene.
But it's
It's the
there.
fake out scene because it's like, oh, you see him get tackled and then the camera cuts out and you're like, oh no, Ice Cube got killed by the aliens. But like, within 60 seconds, it's like showing pictures of him with his family and you're like, oh, he's fine. Never mind. So there's
Sorry
not.
for bringing us back
He's
to the Ice Cube version.
fine.
Yeah, I mean, I
You've
I
got
I
to.
like talking about it to warn other people about, because it is the worst movie I've ever seen by far. And
Oh
I really
wow.
Wow.
like I've seen like Thanksgiving and The Lawnmower Man and The Room, and I really kind of enjoyed all of those movies. This I did
Wow.
not enjoy. It was just not a fun
Yeah.
time to watch.
Wow. Okay. I will keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Next time I'm rewatching Thanksgiving.
Oh man. That's the next movie after
That's
Spooky.
not.
Well, no, Thanksgiving should not be in the canon.
No.
Thanksgiving should 100% be in the canon.
No.
Speaking of things that are horrifying and terrifying, and in a way a bit hopeless, to bring it back to the conversation that you guys were having about
Yeah.
the terrifying elements of this movie, yeah, Thanksgiving is in many ways a little similar.
Yes.
Yeah, the Bob, those three guys that you were talking about who end up
Yeah.
being the first ones who are yeeted, so to speak, by the
Right.
aliens. A very interesting combo, and it is interesting that they do kind of represent like a range of Americana at the time, which like again goes to sort of like how this movie is really good at being small scale, but also maybe not, well, it doesn't end up getting fully global, but like global in like an American sense, like this is coming for
Right.
all of us, which is pretty terrifying.
Mhm.
So before we get into like recommendations and all that, and maybe a way for us to sort of like transition into recommendations is to talk about the lasting impact of this movie, because I didn't realize until I was watching it that so much of like modern blockbuster sci-fi disaster cinema is derivative of this.
Yeah.
And I don't want it like get into spoiling what some of our recommendations might be, but were you guys thinking about any sort of like more modern disaster movies? And Val, I want to go to you first because you're nodding your head.
Yeah, yeah, no, actually, weirdly, a movie that I thought about a lot while watching this movie was 28 Days Later, the Danny Boyle movie,
Mm,
because I think that you get that kind of singular, intimate group that you're following. And even though it's much more like a desolate, empty world, I was even thinking of like some of the scenes where he's like walking down the street at the end where he's looking for um I can't remember the characters' names. I'm so bad,
And
but and and he's not seeing people in the streets at that point. Like he's just sort of seeing the aftermath and the devastation. And I couldn't help but think of 28 Days Later, and the opening kind of scenes from that during those scenes.
that I think that's a movie that is probably pulling from this in a lot of ways. Bob, are there more recent or modern blockbusters, or like what do you think was like or is the lasting impact of this version of the War of the Worlds in terms of like modern blockbuster cinema?
yeah, I think there are a lot. Some of them probably are in recommendation lists, so I don't want to get too specific, but there have been ones that absolutely, I'm just going to say Independence Day. I mean, Independence Day is so directly
Mm-hmm.
inspired by this. They even have the let's nuke it scene, and then it comes out of the mist, and not, it hasn't done anything. Uh, but any kind of apocalyptic disaster movie that came out of that, anything from the whole disaster movies of the 1970s, even to little things like Last Man on Earth, which is adaptation of a novel called uh, I can't remember. It's probably Last Man on Earth, but
First
anyway,
Man on
it's been
Earth.
made into multiple movies too. It was Omega Man with Charlton Heston and
Mm,
whatever. But that movie has, I think it's set in L.A. actually, but those scenes of him wandering by himself through a completely abandoned city
mhm,
are directly inspired by those moments at the end of this movie, where everybody now has, or even like Night of the Comet is a 1980s
mhm,
film where a comet causes everybody to basically collapse into dust, like that episode of the classic Star Trek uh, show, and they end up wandering through LA, an abandoned LA. Not so much San Francisco. I don't know why people don't go there since this movie, but
mm.
uh, yeah,
There are some
lots,
good
lots and
disaster
lots
movies
of
in San
stuff.
Francisco. Directors love blowing up the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, all the
That is
landmarks.
true.
Yeah.
And of course, the director had lived through the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. And
Ooh,
so a lot of those scenes are actually inspired directly from his own experience
Ooh,
in that
that's super
city during the
interesting.
earthquake. Yeah.
yeah. I
Very
even
interesting.
realized after you said that, I was like, right, 28 Days Later isn't even a sci-fi movie. At least not, it's not an alien invasion movie, but I was thinking while you were giving it kind of that background that just disaster movies as a whole have been sort of inspired by War of the Worlds in the way of showing kind of these intimate relationships where they're trying to play house, find senses of normalcy, and how those
Yeah.
scenes can sort of be linked back to the 53 War of the
Yeah.
Worlds.
You can even point, if you wanted to, you could say that like Night of the Living Dead with its
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuck in a farmhouse under an assault from an external force owes a
Yeah.
little bit of something to War of the Worlds as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the like disaster movies that you guys are talking about, like Independence Day or even 28 Days Later, I was thinking of like Arrival as well in
Oh,
terms of
yeah.
movies that are like
Oh wow, yeah,
that are very focused on a core group of people, but then expand out and you have like the military presence and like the government presence. Like
yeah,
I think these more modern movies probably deal with that sort of like back and forth between the personal and more global in a different way that this
Mm-hmm.
movie does. But this really does feel like the template for those kinds of movies where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe the personal story of Will Smith in Independence Day also ends up being connected to the global military response, but it is still playing with that back and forth in the same ways that War of the Worlds is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Arrival, same thing, especially when you think of like those movies as being global alien invasions as opposed to
Right.
just thinking about it on like the super micro level. But yeah, it's insane to think about, and I was kind of upset with myself not realizing that like all of the big disaster movies that I loved growing up were just pulling from this. And I probably should have expanded my horizon beyond just the Tom Cruise version. Although I will say, not enough running in this version. Nobody in this movie runs like Tom Cruise. So
That is true.
Totally true.
That is a thing that can be said.
yeah.
One day
Definitely.
we will have a Tom Cruise movie in the canon. It'll happen.
I can't believe that there are no Tom Cruise movies in the
Yeah,
canon.
I know.
Do the contributors of Screenage Wasteland really dislike Tom Cruise that much?
I think A
Oh,
Few Good Men should be in the canon, if
yeah.
anything. I mean, there's
Is it
quite a few good Tom Cruise movies,
what
but that's
White
one.
Magnolia should
Mm.
probably be in there too.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
All of the Mission Impossible movies.
I mean, I don't have a single one
Oh,
of them I didn't have a good time watching.
yeah.
So,
How do we? Oh, because 2005 War of the Worlds, of
Yeah.
course.
Yep.
Before we do recommendations, do you guys have anything else about this 1953 version of War of the Worlds that we want to bring up?
I have my usual list of random factoids.
Ooh, I love these.
If you
yeah.
care about things, so
Yeah.
this movie was at Paramount for quite some time. They had negotiated the rights with H.G. Wells. At one point in time, Alfred Hitchcock decided he wanted to make a adaptation of this and went and signed a deal with H.G. Wells himself, but Paramount ended up putting a kibosh to that because
Oh,
they had the rights. Sergei Eisenstein was once tapped to make an adaptation of this film, which is bonkers. Can't even imagine what that would have looked like.
That kind of would have been rad.
It could have been crazy, but wow. Wow. And that would
Yeah.
have been made 15 years earlier, and who knows what that kind of thing would have looked like. But
Hmm.
um, randomly, one of the characters, the bad one of the bad scientists in Mystery Science Theater 3000, is named after the main character in this movie, Clayton Forrester. So, and there is a stuffed Woody Woodpecker doll in one of the trees when the first ship crash lands because George Powell was huge friends with the guy who created Woody Woodpecker, and he tried
wow.
to put little touches in whenever he could. So
That's so fun.
Those are great
just
facts. I
random
love
crap.
that.
Yeah.
So,
I did want to mention, since we mentioned the radio play earlier, I mean, I think this is a very well known fun fact that the radio play did accidentally fool people into people thinking that there was an actual invasion happening because they just tuned in the middle and they didn't realize it was a story. And some people did truly panic. And I mean, I
yeah.
grew up like Ralph around New York area. So I mean, when I talked to like my parents, they remembered this happening. That the radio play,
Wow.
just like talking about it with their parents of like, oh yeah, remember when that happened? So it's just another interesting thing, kind of in the widespread lore of War of the Worlds and all of its renditions.
Yeah. That's
Too many
awesome.
amazing renditions. Although I assume that one, unlike some of these other versions, didn't have the like personal story. It was more of just the global sort of look at it. But the book version from the like third of it that I read, if I remember correctly, Bob, it is sort of like honed in on a couple of characters and isn't just fully the the like
Yeah,
global
he's
invasion.
not a scientist. He's just a regular guy, but he's trying to basically get to his wife.
Yeah,
So it's his journey through a war torn Britain.
that's a fun version. I like wife guy trying to get to his wife. That's always a
I
fun
like
story.
wife guy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Randomly, and this is just a coincidence thing for me because I just did a review of the Monolith Monsters, which is a old classic sci-fi film. The guy who plays the general in this movie plays a reporter in this, and I was like,
Oh
oh, I,
man.
I feel like I've seen him in other things. And yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff, but what he was really known for was doing voiceovers, introductions, and he did the introduction to King Kong versus Godzilla in the
Oh my
United States.
gosh, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Like,
I assume not
that's
the 2023 version or whatever.
no. Although that would have been cool.
Yeah, no, still very cool. I love that. Amazing stuff. Amazing conversation. I think we tackled it all. Everything
Yeah.
from Amazon Prime drones to Cold War anxieties. That's There are very few movies that allow us to talk about all of those things at once. So thank you both for joining. This has been very fun, very informative. I think. I hope it was for our listeners as well. We can do some recommendations for War of the Worlds before we get out of here. We may have already mentioned some of them. We may have not, but that's the fun of all this. For the order of recommendations, let's go Val, Bob, and then Raph. How does it sound?
All
So,
right.
Val, whenever you're
Sounds good.
ready, fire up your first recommendation
Okay.
for War of the Worlds.
So is the rule is first one's got to be a movie, other two can be movie or other forms of
Doesn't have to be the
media.
first one. It could be the last one. You can do other
Oh,
forms of media first,
oh.
and then your
Well, dang.
movie could be
Okay.
second. Yeah,
Yeah, then I will jump right in actually with a video game series, which I think
nice.
both of you will probably have heard of, that
Nice.
I think is probably the best sci fi video game I've ever played, and also really tackles the idea of an invasion in a way that feels real on the ground and a global scale, which kind of, and a planetary scale, which made me think of War of the Worlds, and that is the Mass Effect game series, which, if you haven't played it, you really, really should, especially with the Legendary Edition remaster. It's just really good storytelling, infinite replayability, wonderful characters, just a really well told sci fi story.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome.
I've
That's
heard it's
fantastic.
great. I have not played it. Val, are
Dude,
you a gamer?
I am a gamer. I play a lot of
Nice.
video games. So, especially if you're a fan of like RPGs that are really story rich. I mean, BioWare at one time, not really anymore, was kind of the company for that in doing like Knights of the Old Republic and like those games. So, Mass Effect, I think, really is their crowning achievement in terms of storytelling.
Are you a PC gamer? Are you PlayStation?
I have
PC?
a PC and a PS5, so I do
Okay.
both.
Nice.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Did you do a build for your PC?
Yeah, but it's not like a new build. My graphics card is pretty old now, but it can play all the stuff I want to play, so
Yeah,
it's fine.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great recommendation. Bob, are you a gamer?
absolutely. Yeah,
Also
yeah,
PC?
absolutely. PC, but I have an Xbox One. So
So have you played Mass Effect?
I played the original Mass Effect when it came out for Xbox, and I have not. I have because Steam does sales all the time. I have the Legendary Edition. And I'm like, when I get the time, I will sit
Mm.
down and play through all three of them.
Well,
But I haven't.
2 is by far the best, I think, as a
Yeah,
standalone, but having the story of all 3 is a really good time.
yeah,
Good stuff.
fantastic.
Are you
Well,
also recommending a video game, Bob?
I'm going to jump off of this. I have a list of possible things, but I'm actually going to jump off with a classic video game that was actually inspired by War of the Worlds creator Tomohiro Nishikado. Uh, was very inspired by watching the 1950 1953 version of War of the Worlds to create Space Invaders.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice.
And that's the classic top down aliens coming down and you're defending sort of, and it really was the game along with Pac-Man that started the arcade revolution in the 1980s, and has a fantastic following. It's still super fun to play, not for
Yeah.
very long, but it is very enjoyable to play still. And it's also something that you could send to someone in an email and play on your computer now. That's how small the files are. But it's still a fantastic game, just nowhere near as in depth as Mass Effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
But two great games.
Absolutely.
Two great games. Absolutely. I love that. Great recommendations. I'm unfortunately doing all movies because
That's great.
I didn't have that much time to prepare and I could only think of other movies. But the first movie that I'm going to recommend is I didn't have time to look up if there was any actual connection, but this was written under a pen name, and I'm forgetting the actual screenwriter's name, and I don't know why it was that he used a pen name, but it was written under the pseudonym of Barry Lyndon.
Oh,
And
that's
I
interesting.
don't know that was in any way or maybe like inspired by the book that then Kubrick based Barry Lyndon off of. But I'm recommending Kubrick's Barry Lyndon because I did the Leo Point meme when I saw that on screen, and I was like, "That's got to all be. It's got to all be connected. It has to be." I just didn't have the time
That's hilarious.
to actually look it up beforehand. But Barry Lyndon's great. I think everyone who knows me knows that I'm a big Kubrick guy, so that is one of the maybe underappreciated Kubrick movies. It's not in the canon. It probably should be because every Kubrick movie could be in the canon. So check it out if you have 3 hours to spare in between playing Space Invaders and Mass Effect.
There you go.
That was Alfred Higgs, actually, is the name of the guy who is Barry the screenwriter Barry Lyndon, that wrote the screenplay. He was a journalist. That was his whole deal. He was a journalist. So when he started writing first stage plays and then screenplays, he wanted a pseudonym for those. So that's
Nice.
why. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thanks for filling in the gaps.
Sorry.
No,
Completely random.
totally relevant, actually.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Val.
All right. So
What do you
this
got
one,
next?
all right. So this one is a movie. I think even though it's not like as much a one-to-one in terms of like alien invasion, it is kind of a disaster movie that kind of nails that balance of the like intimacy of like the character relationships and pulling back and showing like what's going on in the country and the world in response, well, at least in the country. And that movie is Godzilla minus one.
Yes.
Which
I
is
love that
a
movie.
incredible movie. I went into it not having seen any Godzilla movies in a really long time, and I just was sort of floored by how good that movie is. It's
Yeah.
just it is very much like a post Hiroshima kind of movie in terms of like the story they're trying to tell. Like Godzilla is so clearly kind of in the style of the original Godzilla, an allegory for the atomic bomb, and just kind of choosing to focus on like what this did to people and how this laid bare communities and family relationships and how individuals responded to it. Individual responsibility, is there an individual responsibility? The main character is a kamikaze pilot who chickened out and didn't do his job. So he's like feeling the weight of that the entire movie, being like, well, if I did this, would we even be in this situation now? It's an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth checking out.
It's on
I
Netflix right now.
remember.
I think so.
Yeah. both versions. The black and white one
Yeah.
is also up. But I remember sitting in the movie being incredibly angry because I was teary eyed at a Godzilla movie.
It's very emotional. I
Yeah,
did
Extremely
cry
emotional.
during it. It's an
yeah,
incredible movie.
There were several
yeah.
moments in the theater watching that where I forgot that it was a Godzilla movie. And then
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
score kicks in and Godzilla pops back up. And you're like, what the? I was just
yeah.
watching this insane personal drama and now Godzilla's here? This is the coolest movie ever. Why does it have everything?
Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Great recommendation. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to recommend for my second recommendation something that I have not seen yet, which I totally do not like to do, but I just found out about it. I had never even heard of this. I'm definitely going to run it down. So in 1988, the Canadian Broadcasting Company made a sequel to War of the Worlds that was an official sequel to the 1953 movie. It starred the same actress who plays Anne
Oh
in the
my
original
gosh.
film and was intended as an official continuation of the film. It ran for 2 seasons, 44 episodes.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea this thing existed, but now I have to go and find it and watch it because that's that's too cool not to at least give it a shot.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Gotta watch it. Report back.
Yep.
Let us know. I
Yeah.
love that.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Two more great recommendations. I'm going to bring this round of recommendations down a little bit because I'm going to recommend a movie that I don't love that much, but I was thinking about it when we were talking about the hopelessness at the end of this movie. Definitely a disaster movie that is pulling from either this movie directly or from movies that are pulling from this. But at the end of this movie, and is probably the best moment in this movie, the characters sort of just like give in to, there's no hope for them to sort of like change the fate that they have, and that's Don't Look Up, which again, don't really like that movie at all, but it is available on Netflix, and that is
Wow.
the one scene in that movie that is like fairly enjoyable.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I really hated that movie, I would be honest. But yeah, I
It's a
guess the
bad
ending
movie.
scene is, yeah, that was a bad movie I didn't enjoy. Another one. But it has good moments for sure. I think just overall
You know what, I
I get what
could have
you're saying.
done a like 6 degrees of separation, and I could have recommended, how about this? Scratch Don't Look Up. But that movie, pulling from this movie, directed by Adam McKay, who did make a good movie Once Upon a Time that is based off a really good book. Go read The Big Short.
Oh, that's a
Oh
great
yeah, that
movie.
is a
Oh
good
my
movie.
goodness.
Great
Yeah.
Yeah.
movie, and the book is better.
And I was not trying to hate on your recommendations. Sorry, Raph.
No, it's fine because I mean, if anyone is interested, you can go and check out my Letterboxd review. I don't have good feelings and good thoughts
Yeah.
I
about that
can't
movie
believe Timothée Chalamet was in that movie. Like he is far too decorated
or
to have
anyone else.
been. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio. It's yeah. I don't
My
know what
hot
happened.
my hot take about that movie, although it wasn't a good performance there, Tyler Perry is one of these days going to win a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for one of these like random, seemingly more dramatic roles that he ends up taking in someone else's movie. Like
I
he's
think you're
fantastic in
right.
Gone Girl.
I was
He's
thinking of Gone
okay.
Girl.
He's like okay
Wow.
and Don't Look Up. He could have been better. There is going to be one. Someone is going to tap him and he's going to deliver like a dynamite performance and he's going to win an
Wow.
Oscar.
I think that could happen for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going with The Big Short, but
Also crapping on Raf's choices is now tradition. This is the second podcast I've been
Oh
on with
no.
in a row. So
yeah,
that's
it's
yeah.
fun. It's good fun. Who knows? Maybe you guys will crap on the third too.
Oh
But
no.
before we get to that, I hope not. Val, what is your third recommendation?
Okay, so this is more disconnected from this, but still in the general realm of sci-fi. This is a short story, kind of more in the realm of, I think this is an interesting take on an alien invasion, very different, very creative. Has not been made into a movie yet. I would love to see it be made into a movie, and that is the short story I Am the Doorway by Stephen King,
Oh yes.
which
Oh, I love that
is,
story.
to this day, I don't think I've read a sci-fi short story that stuck with me like that one. If you haven't read it, look it up. It's only like 10 pages long. Like, you can read it in an hour or whatever, and it is, I'm not even going to give anything away about it. It's just a really, really interesting idea on an alien invasion story taking place within one guy.
I
Yeah,
love it.
it's fantastic. When I was a kid, my mom had a paperback of the short story collection,
Mm,
and the cover was a hand
the
wrapped in
hands.
bandages with a little
Hmm.
eye poking out, and when you opened it, it was just a hand with the eyes. Oh,
Like, every time my
yeah,
hand itches, I think about that
yeah,
story and I'm like, oh, there's
yep,
something so unnerving about, like, Stephen King,
yeah,
even like his more silly ideas, his execution is always like right on point. And that
yeah.
is a good
Agreed.
example of that.
Yep,
Hell yeah. I
agreed.
haven't read it. I've read
It's
like
good.
I've read zero Stephen King.
Oh, you should read
That's
Stephen King.
it's Night Shift, right? Is
I
the
think it's Night
collection?
Shift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I might have to check it out.
Yeah, I think I've read
Also, a
about
great title.
35 of his books. So trying to get up to the like full amount, but it's going to take a
Yeah.
while.
It's yeah, some of them are longer than others, and some of them are longer than others.
It's The Stand.
Yeah. The Tommy Knockers took freaking forever to
Oh,
get
I
through,
have that
honestly.
one for my next vacation to read, so we'll get
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is the first and only movie in my list. And I wanted to do an alien invasion movie that wasn't like Independence Day or something directly derived, but was a movie that I enjoyed. This was a small budget film that I hadn't heard anything about when I saw it, and I was like, this is really good. It does a good job of contextualizing an alien invasion with a small group of people in a tight knit community that may be at odds but need to come together to try and figure this thing out. And I'm talking about Joe Cornish's Attack the Block,
Oh,
Oh.
which
nice.
is a great little invasion movie. This is the first place I ever saw Boyega. He was amazing in this. I mean, just so magnetic. Just the first time he's on the screen. It also has Jodie Whittaker, who is recently Doctor Who. It's the first
Mm.
place that I saw her in it, and yeah, it's stuff falls out of the sky, monsters come out of it. A kind of a hoodie gang of kids ends up being a kind of unlikely group of protectors and saviors of mankind. It's super super fun, and
That movie is so much fun.
it is. I love that movie. So,
I'll have
That's
to
a great
check it out. I've
recommendation.
only seen clips of it, so I'll have to give that a watch.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much a gorilla suit with glow in the dark teeth looks terrifying when it's shot correctly.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting.
It's great, Val. You'll love it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
It's
have to
so
watch it.
it's so much fun. Awesome. Great recommendations. I really appreciate that you guys were very thoughtful and thorough with what it is that you're recommending. For my final recommendation, when they're in that little farmhouse together, the first shot is her cooking eggs, and those eggs look amazing.
Yes.
And I
Yes,
was
they do.
thinking about the scene in Birds of Prey where she gets a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. And I was thinking the eggs in Birds of Prey
Wow.
are just like dying to be the eggs in War of the Worlds. So, Birds of Prey, the
Wow.
fabulous emancipation of Harley Quinn, or whatever the full title is my final recommendation because eggs.
Eggs. Buy
That-
a I didn't mention this in my review, but I'm thinking of
wow.
this, eggs in like the other side of the spectrum. If anyone goes to see Ojai, which I don't think it's in theaters anymore, with Logan Lerman. It's a kind of small. There's a scene in the movie where she's trying to make French toast, and it is the grossest egg scene I have seen in
Oh
anything in my
no!
life. I was curling
Wow.
into a ball in the theater, because she mixes it with her hand first, and
Ooh,
before she cooks it,
What?
it's unhinged.
I
So
don't
the
like
the
that.
polar opposite of the egg in War of the Worlds.
Yeah. Also,
Wow.
the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds has a pretty bad food scene where he's trying to make PB&J sandwiches. Bad sandwiches. They don't look good. They don't look yummy at
They
all.
don't look good.
So to
Yeah.
round it back around to War of the Worlds 2025, the only food scene in this movie is him hacking into her smart fridge to view what's in her refrigerator. His daughter, Ice Cube's
Mhm.
daughter. And there's not much in there because she's a woman of the world and she's out and about. And she goes to a diner and orders a muffin with her coffee. And he immediately calls her smartphone and is like, how many times do I have to tell you you need more protein in your diet? And she's like, are you watching me right now? And that's how the whole movie goes. So
Wow.
that is the only food
Wow.
scene.
But how does the muffin look?
I don't remember it. It looked like a typical Starbucks muffin. So, I
Mm,
mean, it looked fine. It didn't look
yeah.
horrible, but yeah.
I'm telling you, man, the eggs in that farmhouse looked
Oh,
amazing.
that
It
was a
did look really
choice
good.
S
Yeah.
tier meal.
Yep.
It's hard to worry about an invasion from Martians when you've got yummy eggs to eat. So
Ugh.
And
there you
way
have
too
it.
much toast. I mean, there's like 12 slices of toast on that
Yeah, that's my
table.
favorite thing in movies and TV shows. The breakfast that people will have, like, who's? Why did you make so much toast? There's
Oh,
there are like three people there. Who needs a stack of toast? But
breakfast in movies always looks better than it does in real life, no
Yeah,
matter
that's
what the
true.
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
who has time to sit down and eat all that toast? There's things to do.
Nobody.
There's movies to watch.
Nobody.
There's movies to recommend. There's, there are
That's
essential movies for us to talk about.
Yep.
There's not enough time in the day for us to have
No,
stacks
that's
of.
why the
But
alien puts his hand on Anne's shoulder because he wants
He
to know,
would
are you going to eat that toast? So
exactly. Mystery solved.
pass
mystery
the
solved.
toast.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, Val, thank you both again for joining. This has been a ton of fun. I think we really knocked it out of the park with this one. We will be back later this week with another H.G. Wells cinematic adaptation. Bob is going to be joining me later this week to talk The Invisible Man, which is super
Ooh,
fun.
yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
wait for that. Didn't realize that we were lining it up that way, but
No.
kind of cool that it does work out that way. Before we end up leaving this episode, any reviews or write-ups or anything on the website coming up this week or in recent weeks that either of you have done?
Yeah. I recently reviewed Him, the recent produced by Jordan Peele horror. I was unfortunately kind of disappointed with it, but I think
Oh no.
that Marlon Wayans does such a good performance that it is worth seeing just for him. I also will be coming out probably by the time this episode's out, the October TV to stream or scream, I guess, because it's
Yes.
Halloween recommendations. And that was the easiest one to write because I've got a total list of my favorite scary shows or Halloween shows. So check that out if you're looking for some TV to watch.
Awesome. I
Fantastic.
love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just had the last of my double feature fear flashbacks with 50s monster movies. So we did Thing Without a Face and The Monolith Monsters, two lesser known. I say that despite Fiend Without a Face having a Criterion release,
Mhm.
which is crazy. And then, of course, we're starting up October with a bunch of stuff. Including we're going to be doing the 50 greatest horror sequels
Mhm.
list, and it's just a bunch of horror related stuff coming up. So it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
Very
we're gonna do top 10 DC horror movies we want to see. I think is
Oh,
another
hell
list coming
yeah.
out.
Ooh,
Yeah, and
that's fun.
obviously we'll have our 31 days
Yeah,
of October recommendations list with all of us chiming in. So looking forward
Yeah.
to see all
yeah,
of
Heard
those.
some there's some fun rankings coming up. There's like we're ranking the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. There's also a really cool
nice.
competition if we have anyone out there who does any fiction
Yeah,
writing. We're doing a competition, or you can submit entries for horror or spooky related short stories that you've written. And I think Duke and Dahlgren are heading that up, so that's going to be super fun. I'm like super excited to see what contributors to the website and other folks,
yeah,
sort of like around and in our community who like to write. I'm really excited to see what folks are going to be putting out. So definitely do that if you are someone who is like kind of inclined to write it all, or if you haven't and want to test your hand. We would love to see what it is that folks are writing. So that
yeah.
is another
That'd be
very fun
fantastic.
thing.
Yeah.
October is going to be so much fun. It's always the best time at Scream Age Wasteland. We will be back, like we said, later this week, talking some more H.G. Wells. This time around, The Invisible Man. Bob will be back. Val will be back soon, sometime this month, to talk other movies that I'm forgetting at the moment. But you will be hearing more from both of these lovely folks in the coming weeks. So we hope to see you or catch your ears back on whatever feed it is that you're catching us on. And as always, in the meantime, Screamagers, we'll see all of you lovely folks in the wasteland, in the spooky wasteland.
Bye.
Bye.